In today's podcast, we are going to be discussing physical health and the challenges that we face from two separate generations, two separate views. From myself, a 50-plus group, and then from Michael's perspective, a 30-plus group. Hi, if you're new here, welcome. We're glad to see you. My name is Bernie from Tiger Resilience, and my background and specialty is in behavioral health.
My name is Michael, and my background is in physical health.
Together, this is a Tiger Resilience podcast where we focus on helping you to make reaching your human potential a lifestyle. And today we're going to be discussing physical health as we discuss our four domains, or our four parts of the human condition. And over the past couple of episodes, we were talking about the mindset and the mind and vision. Today, we're talking about the physical health as it relates to us from both the generational perspectives and the challenges that we have faced, as well as some of the strategies and solutions that we have come for both of these. So we'll also tie that together on how we help each other in that as well. So I'm going to start off. So again, Bernie, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you took time out of your busy schedule to join us. And from a 61-year-old perspective, I will say the challenges of facing with physical health today certainly are certainly significant. I will have to say I'm fortunate that I am in good health and good shape, with the exception of some weight that I need to finish taking off. But overall, I've been in really good shape, and I will have to say that I'm very fortunate in that way. And I know there's a lot of people that are struggling that have many medical issues. I can say that some of the other challenges I face are, from injuries in the past. A ski accident I had when I was like 23 years old, and it has a shoulder issue that I still feel today, which may obviously be exacerbated potentially for some arthritis or something going forward. But with that being said, yeah, there's definitely some challenges today. And from Michael's perspective, and I'm taking this from my generation right now, when I was 30 years old, that challenge at the time was much different because we were much more active. We didn't have the technology that is available to us today. We didn't have work from home like you see today. Just the entire workforce has changed, and the dynamics of the human being and how we interact has changed with the advent of all of the platforms, social media, the smartphones, and so on. So back in the day, we'll call it, there was none of this available to us, nothing like this at least. So most work was very physical. You were very active. If you needed to make communication with somebody, you got up and went over to an office. You went up and had the chat with them, or that for the most part, it was a very active thing. Today, my challenges definitely are those same things, because now that technology, as great of a tool as it is, has now become a challenge, because as we're getting so locked into the blue screens here, and much of our lives revolve around it, again, from professional standpoints and from our business here at Tiger Resilience, we write a lot of content and we do these podcasts. We also do a lot of online courses. And with all that being said, there is a ton of time that it takes to do all this, the production, the editing, and so on. So I find it very challenging that you're sitting here and literally hours can go by and you realize that, oh my gosh, I've been literally sitting here, stagnant, doing all this work. As intellectually heavy as it is, physically is really challenging because you're just sitting there. So I know that's an absolute challenge with me. One of the other challenges, from my perspective today as well, too, is also maintaining, the routines of physical activity, including walking, hiking, getting to the gym on a very consistent basis, which I still struggle with. My wife and I have a schedule together, and we do a decent job with it, but we still struggle from week to week on some times where we can and can't make the gym. I do put in a lot of steps, so I will give that as a plus, but it's not enough. And then one of the other areas that I struggle with is maintaining flexibility, which is really an important part for the 50-plus group, is to maintain flexibility, because you have to consciously take time to work on that. So that's from a 61-year-old perspective. And again, that's from the 50-plus, because a lot of what I'm challenged with today are things that I've been dealing with and, have been growing over the past 10 years. So Mike, take it away from your perspective, from that 30-something generation, because yours is definitely a new group and a new challenges that you face different than my generation did.
Yeah, certainly. I think a lot of the challenges that you're kind of alluding to or highlighting with the 50 plus group is things that very much apply to the 30 plus group. Just going back to the perspective part, for me personally, and my perspective at age 30, about to turn 31 here in a few days. It's a little different or more, I guess, unique for me. My background, for this channel is physical health. I'm a certified personal trainer, and so exercise is like certainly kind of my expertise and my personal sanctuary for anything in life that I'm struggling with. Exercise has always been the remedy for me. So fitness is kind of just like in terms of my priority list, always up towards the top, and that obviously isn't going to be the same case for a lot of people in my age demographic. And because of that, the way I view my health, it I guess isn't really a challenge for me, just because again I put such a high priority on it, maybe compared to others. And that's not to say that it isn't something that people are doing worse in, or should look at themselves in a bad way. But for me personally, it's just something that I put a very high priority on. And with that, I think, alluding to what my dad said in the older age demographic, but now applying that to mine, I definitely have fewer time constraints. And I know at age 30, there are a lot of kind of life milestones that people go through where they have much larger commitments, and exercise is, something that you have to allocate time for. So it can be very difficult, depending on those commitments, to be able to do that. So I totally can understand why it might be so hard for someone to kind of train and work out consistently, on a week to week basis or even day to day. And even with like the kind of perspective about current fitness goals, like for me personally, those have changed over time. And at age 30 now, my kind of goals aren't really about, when I was 20, it was like aesthetics. I wanted to be a very muscular person, kind of into bodybuilding, and a lot of it was very vain in terms of maybe like being in college and trying to present my way to maybe girls or something like that. And not that that's, a bad reason per se for an 18-year-old to engage in exercise, but it's not something that's going to be, long sustaining if you really want to be in this for the rest of your life. And so I think, at age 30 right now for me, some things that really have changed are kind of the focus on the longevity and health markers as I get to that 50 plus, 60-year-old group. Things like consistently getting blood panels, good blood pressure readings, structural integrity with my joints, as my dad was mentioning, with his flexibility, and things that you start to really notice at a certain age. Maybe 30 you're still kind of putting it off because you feel like you can get away with it and you're not addressing it, and then 20 years later you're realizing like this is something I should have addressed maybe at that younger age. And just overall quality of movement. You're going to have a better quality of life if you're able to move your body in a proper way. So, I think for me, just using my background and experience in exercise as a resource for people, especially on this channel, is, my perspective on it, what I want to, help people do in terms of coaching and instructing, regardless of age. Obviously, I am speaking to the, being a 30-year-old right now, this is what I can speak to, but coaching, people in any age demographic and bracket, because there is so much overlap in terms of, the training and the goals and the exercise regimen that they can implement in their lives. So and going back to the overall point of just making fitness a priority for people. I understand the difficulties again of commitment, but it's one of those things that you just have to be super diligent with consistency. And it's a matter of, there's always going to be kind of things and curveballs that come into your life, but you have to be able to allocate that time. And that's just something that I kind of continually put in my own head. As I age each year, it's about, making sure that priority of fitness never kind of deviates from that top part of my, priority list in life. So yeah, I think for me, that's kind of the overall perspective. But again, that shifts, based on age, but there's always going to be very much like core principles in regards to, quality of movement and health and life.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very true. Well, let me ask you this, because it was very insightful, and I do understand, Michael's commitment to fitness has been ongoing since probably around 14, 15 years old, when he really started to take a real change in his life. about how he saw physical fitness and health and well-being. Yesterday, his birthday's up in a couple of days, but his mom, my wife, and I were down at the track down in Philadelphia to watch him do a race, a 1-mile race. And this is almost a tradition. He's been doing this every year on his birthday. And, even at his age, and here's the kudos to the consistency of, your health, he ran a 4-minute 49 second, mile, and that was a milestone for him. And it was a personal best. And, here at 30 years old, he's still able to, reach these milestones. So I think that adds a lot of significance and a lot of motivation for those who are struggling with maintaining or getting involved with physical health, thinking it's too late. You can absolutely increase your health capacity as you age, not worse, but better. And there's a lot of people that are much older than I am that can speak on that from a fitness standpoint. But let me take Mike, from your observations, and this is kind of important. You mentioned from your perspective at 30 something that you have some really good health factors working for you because your challenges are your challenges are nominal compared to some others in your peer group. You can't speak from their absolute perspectives, but you can speak from the observations with some of your friends who you see who are not necessarily as physically active, that might be a little overweight, because I'm looking at a statistic here, from 2020, this demographic shows that 42.5% of United States adults, and this is 2020, by the way, this number has grown certainly significant, between the ages of 20 and 39 were obese. And again, going back to when I was 30, that number was less than half of that, if not much more significantly lower, because there was so much activity in our lives. But this is a pretty significant number. So Mike, my question though is asking, based on your friends in your age group, what are some of the observations that you see and the challenges you see them face, especially those who don't have necessarily the more healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, I think it's a plethora of things. That stat you just mentioned with the, 45 or 42.5% of adults 20 to 39 being considered morbidly obese, which would just be a BMI over 30. And, you might kind of see that when we hear the word obese, it's like usually this connotation of like, someone maybe in a certain picture where they're very large, whatever that body, picture might be for you, but it's a very commonplace thing. I mean, it's a height and weight measurement. So based on the, government guidelines on that, it can be very easy to exceed a BMI of 30. I myself have been there actually in college. So, but it's still a very useful metric to have just to assess kind of the overall health for the general population. So yeah, speaking to the kind of age demographic I'm in with my friends and peers, I think that rise of technology thing you mentioned is huge. Like the commitments things, of course, and that's obviously maybe not as much things I can speak to. Just say a parenthood or moving into a house. I mean, that I can speak to, having, purchased a house and get, moving into that soon, but just a lot of various life, milestones that we talked about that are, difficult challenges and eat up a lot of your time. So sometimes you just feel exhausted and it's not something where you want to, engage in physical exercise. But the technology thing I think is huge. A demanding work schedule where say, you are working remotely, but even if you are working a desk job, most of the day you are sedentary. You're sitting down for upwards to 8 to 9 hours, and there's very little movement. And I mean that I think, at least from my perspective, I can speak to is most of my friends kind of current ordeal where they work corporate jobs and they're sedentary for hours on end, and when you get home you might feel drained and it's not something where you want to feel motivated to work out, and so that kind of creates this domino effect of kind of being immobile in a sense. And I to the lifestyle thing too, I think it's just a matter of if it's not a priority, which again just based on time allocation, and that is understandable. But if it isn't a priority, then, a lot of these things, these lifestyle creeps that'll come with regards to a sedentary lifestyle, while also maybe poor dietary habits, are going to be very easy for you to, find yourself in a status where you're maybe not in the best of health, especially again with the advent of technology and the kind of way we live lives, currently. And this is something that I think has affected my age group probably for the last 10 to 12 years. I mean, we were in that unique age group as millennials where we didn't necessarily have the technology growing up, so we were more physically active, and then it kind of came to us in high school and mostly in college, and then of course post college. So I think it's something that's obviously kind of created a more rapid effect in regards to maybe poor health, just because of the fact that we're getting so engrossed in technology now. And like my dad alluded to, it's something we both engage with all the time with our website, but also on a day-to-day basis for personal use. And it can be very difficult to, get away from that, lay on your phone for a couple hours and just kind of get lost in there. And it is a super troubling thing, especially for people, in the millennial age group, but even younger in Gen Z. So, and kind of some other stats just to highlight kind of that importance too. Chronic diseases such as diabetes and hypertension becoming more common in my age group. So the CDC reported that 8.5% of adults aged 18 to 34 were diagnosed with diabetes in 2020. Which when you think of something like that, diabetes is always something where generally thought maybe an older age group was affected by that, or it wasn't something that would pertain to a younger age group. But those percentages keep getting more rapid and rapid. And so it's something, as I mentioned, with even me, for instance, at age 30, kind of assessing my blood work now and things that I probably wouldn't have otherwise done 5 to 10 years ago. I think it's really important in my age group to just be consistent with also assessing where you are with those markers. Even if you aren't, consistently exercising right now, when you go to the doctor and you have these checkups and assessments and they give you the feedback of like, hey, these things need to change because, you are kind of in a threshold where it could be detrimental, 20 years from now. I think that's like super important, not to neglect. Yeah, exactly. To be pre-diabetic, or not even pre-diabetic. I mean, just having these health markers that, you aren't even on like the radar yet, but you kind of like get feedback where, okay, like this is something, again, potentially in the next 10 years, if I don't change some lifestyle factors, that could be super detrimental. So yeah, I think that's just critical for both age groups, but just again, as it pertains to, the younger age group, just because you do at least have years to catch up if there is, a potential issue right now that you can address. And just going back again to the overall lifestyle, I mean, I think it's, I live in a city, so it could be different between, say an urban or rural environment, but, kind of the constant, say going out to eat and drinking, which are super great activities for people to do. They need to engage in moderation and have social activity. But I do think that if you kind of find yourself in a place where, you're doing this consistently, maybe not cooking meals at home and kind of monitoring, your dietary habits, it can kind of get out of hand. And it's something where you might not notice it for a long time until you have that health checkup. And then all of a sudden, certain blood markers are kind of not where they should be. And then it's kind of a wake up call, especially again, at the age of 30, just because that is still a pretty young age to, address maybe certain health issues. And so I think those things are, going to be very important going forward. But yeah, it's, I don't want to say it's scary, but I do think that, just given our kind of current climate with health in the United States, it's something that, it's going to continually affect our younger age demographics. And so if we can speak to as much as we can, again, across, generational divides, it's going to be really important, conversations to have and inform people on.
And yeah, and I really, the idea behind the markers too, and, and I mentioned pre-diabetic, that is, sometimes even just a slightly elevated blood sugar will obviously give an indicator too. So, going back doesn't mean going into that, but as you alluded to, having even just some slight variations that are looking to potentially in 5 or 10 years get you to an area that you don't want to be in. So that is important. And, making this important to you, and that's what we're going to discuss right now. What are the strategies and what are the concepts that we use today that help us, to do that help me to continue to take some weight off, that help me maintain my physical wellness as much as Mike, even though you are really well conditioned as an athlete right now. From my perspective, talking about what are some of the things that are important, and Mike, you alluded to this a couple of times. You have to make this important, and how do you make this important is not so much a priority, but when. And what I mean by that is that when we do things is really significant, because if we want to make it a priority, we want to put it up on the top of a list. So look at your 24 hours as your list. And so what I have done and found very successful, and I do this, and I also teach this in some of the programs that I do outside of here, is looking at this from a visual sense, is that if I only have 24 hours, what are the best moments of me to get used to the hard stuff? Back in a corporate day, there used to be a term called eat the frog, right? And you had a task of 5 things. And one of those was you had to eat a frog. Well, what'd you do first? You ate the frog, get that thing out of the way, right? So if exercise is something that's important, and you have to do it, but you haven't found the wherewithal to say, I'm really excited about it, well, then make it a frog. Eat the frog and do it first thing in the morning. If you get these tasks done first thing in the morning before your day starts, and you may have to reschedule. I had to do that with my schedule. I was generally getting up at like 6 a.m. Then I bounced it to 5:30. Then I bounced it to 5, and I'm at 4:30 now. I'm actually considering going to 4 in the morning so I can get my additional work done, and then adding additional physical activities with that in my routine as well, because the benefits of that far outweigh worrying about getting up a little bit extra early. And like any conditioning, once you've done that, Mike will speak a little bit on that for his own perspective. Once you start doing that, it's just a natural part of life. In fact, if I, even on the weekends when I try to sleep in, I wake up at that time regardless. I don't need an alarm or anything. And even though I may want to sleep in a little bit, it's very difficult to do that because my body's been conditioned. My circadian rhythm system has been conditioned to get up at that time. So the reason I'm sharing that is that if you want to do these strategies of working out, maybe it's getting out and, to follow Andrew Huberson talks about getting up and getting sunlight in into your body very first thing in the morning. And Huberman, my apologies, not Huberson, Andrew Huberman, phenomenal podcasts and very popular on YouTube. But he does talk a lot about getting out there and, getting some sunlight first thing in the morning. So depending on where you live in the world, and, we're kind of in the northeast part of here outside of Philadelphia area in Pennsylvania. So for us, this time of year is easy to get up in the morning and get some sunlight. But in the wintertime, you don't have that option. But it really is getting that priority is just eat the frog, make exercise the frog if you can't get excited about it. And so those first 2 or 3 things that you can do in the morning that set in place the motivations that get you going through the day. So for me, it is doing weights in the morning. I have weights here at the house, so I'll do that first thing in the morning. I would like to get myself to the discipline where I can get to the gym before work. And that's something I'm working on going forward and trying to figure that out into my schedule, like all of us. But if you make it a priority, and even again, just use this term, eat the frog. It's not something we want to do, but we have to do. So you just get the damn thing done first. Do that, because once you've done that, the box is checked and it's done. And no matter what the life throws for you for the rest of that day, that new 24 that you're living in, regardless of what happens, at least you got that done and it's put behind you. And if you get to add to that, for myself, I work in a psychiatric hospital setting during the daytime. So for anyone who's familiar with any hospital setting, period, an acute setting, you're constantly on your feet. There's a lot of steps going on. And I make it a point to use not the elevators, but to use the steps to make sure that I accumulated at least 10,000 or more steps a day. And those are other things that I can do in my control to help me to benefit my health. And these are things that, it's just finding ways to work around what you are doing, and if you have an environment where you're not able to get up and run around, then make the time, find a Pomodoro technique where every 25 minutes you set a timer off, and that timer goes off, and for the next 10 minutes you do something physical. And if it's walking outside of your office or whatever your particular environment is that you're doing for work or your life at this point, getting out and spending that 10 minutes just walking, that's how we get these things done. Again, sometimes you can't wait for motivation, because if we do, you'll be waiting for the Christmas that never comes, because it doesn't happen. It's really just about, again, getting up and doing it. And the first thing in the morning, I have found for myself and for the people that I work with, especially in my age group, having that opportunity to get that knocked out first thing in the morning gets it done. So that's a powerful strategy. That's how we make it important to us. And it is scheduled, to do those on, I have certain days of the week, I get very specific things done. And if I miss a day, I don't screw up the next day, I just miss a day. I'm like, okay, I'm not worrying about making that up. I just pick back up the next day and get back on track. Never worrying about yesterday. Regrets is a horrible place to be. There's no success in regrets. It's like driving your car staring at a rear view mirror heading down a highway. There's nothing that's going to happen good from that. Focus on what you got going with yourself today. If you fall down, you get back up, you move forward. So those are some of my strategies, Mike. How about something you can talk about to your generation, but maybe not just from your perspective because you're so physically active and healthy, but maybe from some of your friends, like some of them that you see that are not necessarily in the greatest of health. What are some of the strategies you could say that would be beneficial for them?
Yeah, I think you highlighted a ton of great points. That point about like motivation being such like a weaning thing, and it even for me, as much as I love exercise, there are so many days where I am absolutely not motivated to work out, and just don't even want to. I mean, today was a perfect example. I had a long run kind of programmed after doing this race, and I stayed up a little later to watch some UFC fights and didn't get the best of sleep today. And my motivation to want to do this run, I kind of got out later, so it was already really hot out. I was like, I just didn't want to. I was like getting out of the car, I'm like, I kind of dread this right now, and did that first mile on the run and still didn't feel great, and kind of like eased into it, and it got better and finished it. I felt good, but the whole time, it wasn't like the most quality, session or something that I enjoyed the whole time. But afterwards I was like, I got that done. Like, in the past I might have just skipped it altogether because my motivation to do it was just so low. So I think that's such a, critical concept to kind of reinforce, just with people, that motivation is going to be an up and down thing. That is not something you should ever rely on in regards to, your like consistent engagement in exercise. So but in terms of just like some strategies I would have for, for some friends who are in my age demographic, I think it's like just getting as simple as can be. So making sure, kind of conveying the information that you can have effective exercise and workouts, and it doesn't need to be this kind of elaborate, multiple, more than like 3 workouts per week or something where you're doing every single day. I mean, some of my friends who've asked me to kind of coach them, some things they'll say is just kind of like, where's your current baseline right now? So like even doing a few like, walks per week right now is probably going to be more than your current baseline. I mean, just going off like kind of the American Heart Health Association's recommendations, the recommendation currently is 150 minutes per week of moderate walking. So I would just start there. I would just say, like, from a guideline of someone in my age group who has been sedentary for, an extended period of time, maybe just try to hit that guideline right now, because, some people might say that's a low barrier for, just exercise in general to have only 150 minutes of moderate walking. But I mean, it's a guideline for a reason, because it can be something that's applied to the general population, and could be, at least fairly attainable in a short period of time. So I think that could be just a start for, both age demographics. But again, speaking to, say if I was to like give advice to one of my friends, and from there, it's kind of just the consistency thing in regards to kind of going into elaborating for a more, specific program based on their, current needs. So again, if it was like someone who's been sedentary for a while, just like giving them the core principles about, that there is going to be a level of frequency they'll want to have with, their exercise. So maybe it is 2 to 3 times a week. And if they can maintain that routine, that's going to be really great. As it pertains to nutrition strategies, just from a diet standpoint, that there is no perfect diet. There's going to be the diet that you can stick to and that you can, again, be consistent with. But I wouldn't give like, a certain kind of like framework of a diet. I mean, it would be, some type of whole foods, whether it's lean proteins, some starchy carbs, fruits and vegetables, and, kind of omega-3 rich fats. But these are things, again, that are just super general. It's more so try to figure out foods that you kind of find yourself enjoying on a consistent basis that aren't necessarily, completely processed or very calorically dense, and kind of go from there and assess. Again, these are all general guidelines, but if I'm just speaking to someone right now in my age group who is, very sedentary, just wants to get in a little better shape right now and kind of fix some maybe, health ailments that they're currently having, these are just really quick fixes and easy addresses that doesn't have to go into a super detailed program. And I get that also applies to the 50 plus group too. Of course, there's going to be specific things, again, that applies to each, group, but these will be general guidelines. And then that point about preventative healthcare we've been talking about, with all these like health markers and the statistics in regards to my current age group, having poor health. The regular health checkups and screenings is still something I would reinforce as well. Even for myself, again, I was talking about how I in the past kind of neglected that and wasn't necessarily addressing that. Something like my blood pressure reading, for instance, I've always had like a little elevated blood pressure, and so I've gotten to a point now where I'm kind of more consistently reading it to make sure that it is kind of checked and there isn't like some underlying issue, because that of course can be, they kind of call that like the hidden thing where your blood pressure isn't something you necessarily would feel or notice at a certain point, but then when it gets to point of like hypertensive crisis, then it could be obviously a massive problem. So yeah, those are some general guidelines, but I just think it's going back to the consistency. I mean, there's no other kind of framework that you can operate in other than it's just going to take diligence and time, days, months, years, especially that years part. I mean, I speak as someone like my dad mentioned, who's been engaging in a physical exercise for the better part of like 16 years, sport now, and now it's obviously for more recreational use, but it's something that's just going to take a lot of time, and you're going to have to allocate that effort and that concept too of motivation. Even though it is weaning, you're going to get to a point when you become so consistent that you do truly enjoy the ability to move your body, and it gives you that kind of level of euphoria. For a lot of things, it's the runner's high, or even in weight training, just the changes in your body and the pleasantness and experience that it gives you in regards to just feeling better about yourself because you might look better or clothes fit better. All those things are really going to help and kind of aid in your enjoyment of exercise. So yeah, I think those are just general guidelines, again, for my age demographic, that also could apply to the 50 plus, but just that consistency, that's got to keep going back to that for sure.
Yeah, no, the fact is, that word is always consistency, and I know the time word is always something that really freaks people out. And the only thing I would add to that is that you don't necessarily have to think about this as days, weeks, months, or years. Just think about it for today. Just live in the day, live in the moment, live in the 24. What can you do today? And I'm also not somebody who believes when you hear some of they hear some of the stories, and I've done some readings on, where like if you only do something once a week, that it really has no benefit at all, so don't do it. You're just wasting your time. I think that's crap. I think that if all you could do is get out one time a day or one time a week, and you're able to do something physically active, do not stop. Build upon that. And as Michael is stating, the consistency will come as you continue to build upon that one day a week. Then you work on getting it to 2, then maybe 3, and then so on, allowing yourself that. So one of the things I would say, and especially for my age group too, particularly if you haven't been active in a while, and it's like, well, I don't even think I could start. I might not only be able to do like once a week. And, I've read that it's like a waste of time. Well, that's the BS piece. It's not a waste of time. Anything is that you can do is something, and it matters because it will build upon your success from there. That's what will start it as well. So, good stuff, Mike. Really appreciate that feedback and the input, including having some of the dietary stuff as well. Both age groups really struggle with the challenges, and technology has across the board harmed us all in many ways, but it's also been a benefit to us when used correctly. It's a fantastic tool. I'll be honest, I could not do the things I do today if it wasn't for technology to be able to be as expedient in many of the things that I do, because I have these processes in place in the technology. But again, it's a tool, and you need to work around that and use your life and your schedule. Remember, you own your 24, and you're in charge of what you do with that. So again, for my age group, first thing in the morning has been the most beneficial period, and staying committed to it. And if you find a partner, an accountability person, for me, I have it with my wife, but you find another partner, even somebody you can meet, at a park that you want to walk with every other day, or somebody at the gym, or whatever it may look like. Having an accountability person is really powerful with that too, because it builds what Michael was stating about that weaning motivation. It kind of makes it a more of a priority, because if you're with somebody, you don't want to let them down. And so there's also that little competitiveness too with it too, which we all have, built within us. So, Mike, that was great stuff, man. This is a great topic. Again, we're reviewing these human domains over the course of the next few weeks, and this today was about physical health, and we really focus on the mind, the body, the heart, and the spirit, of those four constructs of the human condition. And we're going to be talking at length about them over the course of the next weeks coming up. And also, as that ties into our program that we are also launching very soon, From Ashes to Action, the Tiger and Phoenix approach to overcoming adversity. In that program, you'll see description and links below. We are still finishing up with our beta version, and if you'd like to join for free and have the course for free and be part of our Master Academy, which is our monthly membership site for free for those first 3 months, if you'd like to have the course and all those opportunities for free, please see the link below so you can join our beta group, because the only thing that we're looking for is your input and feedback as we're developing the course. So again, that is our online course, From Ashes to Action, the Tiger and Phoenix approach to overcoming adversity. Once again, my name is Bernie from Tiger Resilience. I want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy life and schedule to come and join us for our podcast. We look forward to speaking with you again really soon. We'll have descriptions about our shows, as well as also the website with all of the things that we do listed below in the description. Mike, any closing thoughts?
No, yeah. As I've said in former podcasts, I think you highlighted all the most important things. And, going just one more back to that point of technology, it's a catch-22. We can utilize it for positive things too. So resources like myself and my father in regards to coaching or information about mental health and physical health, and that's like an awesome thing to have if you're someone that doesn't have a ton of knowledge about exercise. And you go online and you can find a ton of resources to start your own journey and program. But then on the flip side, it's something that you can rely on and use too much, and it creates that sedentary lifestyle. So it's always going to be a matter of balance, like everything in life, and that's just something that we're going to have to kind of constantly assess as we use it and as we kind of go into this technology era. So but great discussion, and we definitely look forward to having a lot more of these about exercise, and then as well as with mental health.
Thank you very much. And we will look forward to meeting and speaking with you again in our next podcast. Have a fantastic day, and all the best to all of you and yours.